If you're someone that wants to get tips and tricks to effectively get your book published, perhaps you're an aspiring author, you're starting from scratch, you're a bit confused, you want to get a surefire path to getting your book done, be sure to subscribe to the Getting the Win show. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe at Getting the Win. If you're listening on podcast, subscribe on Spotify. I am officially on Spotify, so you can find me on audio. Let's get into the show. Writer's block is not what you think it is. The reason you haven't been working on the thing that you're supposed to be writing isn't really writer's block. It is an organization and low prioritization issue, or one of the two. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's one or the other. So the purpose of this word web that I'm going to share with you guys in this episode is to get rid of the organizational issue. Good evening. Happy Wednesday, my winners and go-getters. Welcome to this week's episode of the Getting the Win show. I am your host, Melissa T, the procrastination bully. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So in this episode, I'm going to tackle the first pillar in my F5 framework. A couple episodes back, I covered the F in the F5 framework, which is a foundation. So just go back 2 episodes, just count it back, count the number back 2 episodes, and you'll be able to check out that foundation episode where I go into that important first part in building out your book. Before you do anything else, before you create any of the content, that foundation step is first. So today we're getting into the first pillar, which is outline and deadline. Okay. The outline and the deadline. That is what I call the blueprint pillar. The blueprint pillar, outline and deadline. I shared this in the virtual writing workshop that I did on Tuesday, April 29th. I have a free virtual writing workshop coming up at the end of May as well. The last Tuesday in May at the same time, 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're available and ready to do that, don't worry, I will get you the link. Watch this space and I will get you the link to sign up for that. In the meantime, let's get into this episode. So you guys have heard me briefly talk about in previous episodes, if you've been watching the Getting the Win show for a while, talk about the word web, or what's more commonly known as a mind map. I call it a word web for my folks. But this is what is going to help you get your ideas out of your head and onto the page so you can get started on writing the content for your book. Because raise your hand or put it in the chat if you've had the book idea and the reason you paused on it and didn't go any further with it was that you had no idea where to start or didn't know what to write about. Okay. So this word web, this outline part is the first step in getting all that stuff out of your head and organized. In a previous episode, I talked about writer's block, and I gave the hot take that writer's block is not what you think it is. The reason you haven't been working on the thing that you're supposed to be writing isn't really writer's block. It is an organization and low prioritization issue, or one of the two. Sometimes it's both, sometimes it's one or the other. So the purpose of this word web that I'm going to share with you guys in this episode is to get rid of the organizational issue. Because once something is out of your head and onto the page, you can take action. If you've been rocking with me for a while, you hear me say that a lot. Get it out of your head and onto the page, you can execute. Tony Robbins puts it the perfect way. He says, stay in your head and you're dead. So yeah, here's how you go about creating your outline. Because you've seen an outline. If you've been to school, like, you already know what an outline looks like. It's unsexy. It's boring. Don't worry about it. I have a step before you get to the unsexy part. This first step is a little more engaging for yourself and for your mind. It's a bit more engaging and it's a bit more visual. So the first step is indeed that word web. Remember, if we're going through this F5 system, we've already gone over the foundational process in which we narrow down some of the most burning questions that we would need to answer. So what do you need your book to do? What do you want your book to do? What problem does your book solve for your reader? Questions like that. And then in terms of if you have too many ideas, you're presented with the questions. What do you get asked about most frequently? What are you most passionate about? And what is a topic that can get you to the bag the fastest? What is a topic that you can monetize the fastest? So these were the ideas in the foundational step that can help you narrow down your ideas to pick one to work on for this particular book. So now you're in the blueprint pillar, you have your one idea. This is when you come to the word web step. Okay. This is step one in the blueprint. You come up with your word web first. So I'm going to show you the same word web that I shared in the workshop that I did back in April, the virtual writers workshop. As you can see, it's color coded. And I did that because I wanted to provide a visual cue to make it easier for you to see. So as you can see, the main idea is in the middle, not procrastinating on your book. From there, everything else, you write down everything else connected to that. Okay. Once you do, those are your primary ideas. Those are your first ideas. You draw the legs and you write them around the main idea. So that those are your primary ideas. Okay. From there, you brainstorm around each of these. Okay. So this one up here that says procrastination sucks. I brainstormed a couple of other ideas around that. Put some writer and author procrastination stats up there. Put some general procrastination stats up there, right? Those are your tertiary ideas. That's what I call them. The first one is your main idea. The next set that you brainstorm are your secondary ideas. If you notice in this visual, they're turquoise or aqua. Okay. From each of your secondary ideas, you brainstorm from there. And whatever you come up with, those will be your tertiary ideas. So this one, not procrastinating on your book. Why? Your message is needed. That's a secondary idea. A tertiary idea that branches off of this, you can make a difference in someone's life. Anything branching off of that, you can then use as a story in your personal life to back up your point. You could be coming up with statistics to back up your point. You would organize these ideas accordingly. So the tertiary ideas are in blue. That way you can know what they are. Now, the reason these are color coded, the reason I'm saying this in numerical terms, primary, secondary, tertiary, is that when you create your outline now, which is the next step, you organize it based on your secondary and your tertiary ideas. So your secondary ideas in your outline are going to be your book sections. Whether not fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter. This still applies. These are going to be your book sections. Then underneath your sections, that's when the tertiary ideas come into play. Your tertiary ideas are your chapters. Okay. So just to give you that visual. So for instance, not procrastinating on the book, main idea. A section of the book will talk about the relief of completion. Within that section, one chapter could be talking about a sense of accomplishment. Another one, doing something hard but meaningful, and the importance of keeping your word. That's an example. The procrastination sucks, that's one section, broken up into 2 chapters. The impact of procrastination in general, and then to drive the point even deeper, the statistics on the impact of procrastination on authors and writers. Those are 2 separate chapters. Not procrastinating on your book, one section, legacy. Within that, your imprint on the world. That's a chapter. So hopefully this makes sense. This revenue one, that's another great example. Your section, revenue source and options, each of these is a chapter. Talk about courses. Talk about a coaching program and what that would look like connected to a book. Merch options, what that would look like connected to a book. Multiple book formats, that is its own chapter because there's a lot of them. Okay. So this is what a word web would look like. And it can take as long as you want it to. I estimate 10 minutes, at the most 20, because I know you're busy. This is you want to get started on your book. You've been procrastinating on it. It's something you do still want to do, but you're not sure. This is a step that is easy to do. It's mentally stimulating. So you'll feel fulfilled when you do it, and it's brief. So it's not taking up too much of your time. So that's the outline part. Now that you've seen the process, you do the word web and then you make it into an outline. You literally write that out. You write your sections and write the chapters underneath it. Don't worry about any pages or page numbers. Don't assign any of those parameters upon yourself. You don't need to. But once you write out your outline, from there, give yourself the deadline. That's the second part of the blueprint pillar. Give yourself the deadline. Okay? Because if you're doing this in sequence in the F5 system, the foundation was the first part. That part will likely take the longest because you're digging as thoroughly as possible into what you want to write and why and for whom, right? This pillar, this will take you 20 to 30 minutes. And then you assign yourself a deadline. Now that you've seen what your outline looks like, what all of the content in your book is going to entail. Will it take a week? Will it take 2 weeks? Will it take a month? Will it take a couple of months given your schedule? Are you somebody with a 9 to 5 and you're running a business or a side hustle and you have this book in you? Because again, I'll mention my avatar, Vanessa, that is her life story. She's a wife and a mom with a 9 to 5 and a business, and she still has a book in her because she wants a backup or an economic vehicle to ensure financial stability for her family. So she's super busy. So this could be you. So in that case, let's keep that deadline to 1 month for your book. 2, if your job is particularly demanding and you work long hours, or that juggle between your job and your side hustle or your business is quite demanding. At most 2 months. Some people can knock out a book in a weekend. I proved that with the Spring Forward Writers Retreat. We used the F5 system and all of the attendees came away as authors. They had their manuscripts done by the end of that weekend. It was a 4-day weekend from Thursday to Sunday. So a book can be done in a weekend, but allow yourself whatever time you feel you need. I would recommend do not give yourself more than 2 months unless you're doing something very deep, such as a memoir. A memoir is a bit different than a guide. A memoir is where you're covering your life story and you're telling your life story in that sequential narrative form, similar to what Mignon Francois did with Made from Scratch. Made from Scratch is a memoir. She told her life story in a linear narrative fashion. And she's such a fantastic writer that it read like a novel. So if you're doing something like that, sure, allow yourself the extra time. No problem. If your book is going to be more of a guide where you're providing instruction and backing it up with stories from your life, you don't need nearly as much time. That word web alone, that exercise alone, will help you extract the stories that you're going to need as your backup examples for the lessons you want to teach, based on what you brainstormed around the main idea. You saw the diagram. Okay. So word web, outline, pick a deadline. Pick a deadline. And the other step connected to the deadline, communicate that deadline to somebody else. Communicate that deadline to someone you trust, someone who you're excited to share this idea with, someone you've already been talking to about your book idea, perhaps. And maybe they've gotten low key tired of hearing you talk about it. So when you give them the deadline now, they'll be excited. Or if you prefer a different wording, because words do have power, a definite date. I got that term from Jamal King. Shout out to Jamal King, the 9 to 5 millionaire. The definite date. Give yourself a definite date and share that definite date with your accountability partner, that person you trust, another person. Share it with a who. Okay. That way, that other person can hold your feet to the fire. They can check in with you periodically. Hey, how are you doing with this? How's your book coming along? Where are you in it? Okay. You share with them your outline. You share with them the definite date. That way they have a better way. They have a better idea of how to hold you accountable. They have a better idea of the questions they need to ask you. Okay. That's the first pillar in the F5 system. So first one was foundation. Go back 2 episodes if you need to watch that. This one is the blueprint pillar, outline and deadline, or definite date, right? Tune in next Wednesday and we'll get into the book building pillar. And that's the actual content creation, right? This was a very brief episode, and that's okay. This particular series of episodes is going to cover that F5 system, that F5 framework. So expect these next 4 episodes, not counting this one, to finish out the framework. We've covered the foundation. This one was the blueprint pillar. You're going to get the other 4 pillars. Next week, we're talking about the book building pillar, which is the content creation. All right. This one was nice and quick. I know you're busy. I appreciate you for tuning in. And by all means, comment below what your takeaway was from this one, that you perhaps there was something there that you hadn't heard before. Perhaps you had an aha moment. Or if you have a question, drop that in the comments as well. I'm happy to answer them. And as always, if you find this video helpful, be sure to like it so the algorithm can find it and share it with others. Share the video with your folks. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe there at Getting the Win. If you're listening on Spotify, please be sure to subscribe on Spotify. I am at Getting the Win Show on Spotify. On YouTube, I am at Getting the Win. And on socials, be sure to follow me at Getting the Win Show on Pinterest, Instagram, and Threads. But in the meantime and between time, have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.